Is Les Mis worth it? I don't know. Let's find out. Hi everyone, I'm Sandy and welcome back to my channel. Today I have 1001 book countdown for you. It has been a few weeks since I have had a countdown video. All explained as soon as you see the book that I ended up finally finishing. If you're not familiar with the 1001 book countdown, I will leave a card up here for you where you can go and check out the original video where I talk about the entire project in a lot of detail. But basically, I'm reading books off of the 1001 books you must read before you die list, and I'm slowly making my way through this list. I started this as a passion project a number of years ago and have just decided to document it on BookTube when I got to right around 1001 left, because of course I took all versions of the list, which actually had 1,300 plus books on it. I know, ridiculous, but that's what I did. So hopefully consider giving me a subscribe and sticking around and seeing how far I get. I have been making a lot of progress on this project since starting my channel, which makes me incredibly happy. What I will do now though is I will go ahead and put up the numbers where I'm at on my project, which are 887 and 47. No, 46. 46. 46 being every year at the beginning of the year. I pre-select 52 books, and those are the books that I try and focus on for the year. And I like having a number that I could conceivably get down to 0 by the end of the year. I'm not optimistic about this year because I'm definitely behind, but that is where the numbers stand as of right now. And what book do I have for you? I actually have my 1001 book club pick for March of the Mammoths, which is Les Miserables by Victor Hugo. Victor Hugo only has 2 books on the 1001 book countdown. This one and his other most famous one of The Hunchback of Notre Dame. I actually read that one before starting my channel, and then now this one. This is definitely one of the more intimidating books that were on that's on the 1001 book list. This particular version is 1,200 pages, but several versions are over 1,400 pages. It is a mammoth, a monster, a monumental feat to get through this particular book. I certainly was intimidated. I was leery about reading this book. I didn't know if I was going to like it. Yeah, there was a lot that went into this particular one. This book was originally published in 1862 and is broken into 5 volumes. If you haven't read this book, pay attention to the names of the characters on each of the volumes. They are important to the story, and I won't say too much more. I'm going to do a non-spoilery section and then talk more detail about some of the characters towards the end of this video, but I will give you lots of warnings about when that occurs. So this particular book starts off a little bit slow. So if you like a slow moving pace, at least as you're starting to get to know the characters, you will probably love the beginning of this book. I know a couple people in my Discord, or at least one person in my Discord, said they were having trouble connecting potentially to the characters, but later they said they were really glad they didn't give up on the book. So just know it can be slow in the beginning. I love the beginning, I will say that. And the book is set in Paris, and as we go through, it really is ultimately the story of crime and punishment, of forgiveness, of what it means to be redeemed, of what good acts do you have to do in this life in order to redeem for a past crime. What does it mean to have a sense of duty, and duty above all else and everything else? I think all of those. It is a story of good and evil in a lot of ways, and there's also a big component of the contrast between the incredibly wealthy and the very poor. And in addition to that, all of the people that try and take advantage of all sides of that equation. So I found it really to be a really fascinating story. Now, I will say that I love this book. I had a really wonderful time reading this book. I have to say thank you to everyone who was on the Discord and chatting, because you added to the experience of reading this book with me. If you haven't read this book, I highly recommend reading this with another person or a group that you can chat with. In addition to the Discord, I also was chatting one-on-one with Kelly and Mitchell, who has a lovely BookTube channel, which I will leave linked in the description below. And We were chatting so frequently about this book. I feel like she's one of my good friends now. It was absolutely wonderful. And another huge shout out to Kelly from Books I'm Not Reading, who I would just drop her a message and say, this happened, because she had just finished reading this book this year. So absolutely get a buddy to read this book. It is so much more when you read it with someone else, I feel like. And it is just an absolutely incredible story. Now, the story is not perfect. I'm not going to say I enjoyed every single chapter of every part of this book, because this book is famous for its offshoots, its diversions, its other parts of the story. I think probably one of the more famous ones is the sewer section. And I will say that that particular one was very maddening because of where we were at in the story. And then suddenly we have however many chapters of being in the sewers of Paris, and not with our characters, just describing the sewers in Paris. And so there are multiple of those. In this particular edition, it's even more interesting because the publisher took 2 of those sections and actually put them at the back of the book as an appendix. So in some cases, the stories have a lot to do with kind of what's going on with the environment. Either you're talking about a battle, you're talking about the city, you're talking about something that has some kind of connection. But I don't know if the publisher in this particular version saw those 2 sections and said, no, they don't, we're going to move them. I don't know why they didn't move the sewer one other than what happened after that, but there usually was a point to those diversions. So like I said, if you read this book, again, I do think it's worth the time. I would say that. And it is one that, give it a minute to get into it. Give it a minute to really catch on for you. And if you don't fall in love with the main characters, I'd be surprised. I really enjoyed this particular book quite a bit. I would say it's a 5-star. I kind of like, should I be petty and penalize the book for those offshoots? Yeah. The other thing with this book is there are some issues for me with a couple of the characters in it, and some late added characters that I didn't understand fully what their point was, and a couple of characters that just kind of got swept to the side, and I didn't get to find out in detail what happened to them. It's hard to say that out of a 1,200-page book, my thing is I wanted more. I did kind of want a little bit more, or leave one of those characters out, is kind of what I would say. So it's kind of in that middle piece. Les Miserables, that's the non-spoilery section. The spoilers. So for me, I love the contrast of the bishop in the beginning. I know the bishop was kind of a slow way to start the book, but I think once you have the bishop and the goodness and just how kind and forgiving the bishop was, it provided that contrast throughout the entire book and showing how it impacted Jean Valjean throughout the book. I just thought that was brilliantly done. Oh, Jean Valjean, he is such a character that I just was rooting for through the whole book. I did not want him to be rearrested. I felt like the crime he had committed of stealing a loaf of bread and breaking a window, he paid his dues for that, and it didn't deserve the 5-year sentence he originally got, and definitely didn't deserve the 18 years and that he got after trying to escape and forever being on parole and being a pariah. It was just, I was like, really? This is what he's going to jail for and being pursued for? And that idea of having Javert and his duty, and this is his responsibility no matter the circumstances, is something that, again, I was like, what point is someone's crime, have they been redeemed and paid for it? Versus Javert, who is so black and white through much of this book. That part, that contrast of that, I thought was really, really amazing. Fantine broke my heart. Oh, so horrible. And the Thénardiers taking such advantage of her in that beginning, taking her daughter for her, but then blackmailing her essentially and saying that they needed more and more money because Fantine or Cosette was sick. I was devastated and mad. Oh my goodness. So mad about those characters. They were so brilliantly done though, as being just complete assholes. If I'm going to use a bad word in there. Oh, I wanted them to get their comeuppance in that part too. Oh, so good. Marius was not my favorite character. Didn't love him a lot in the book. I thought he was definitely being portrayed as very young. Is standing for certain things regardless of the cost. I did appreciate his want and desire to be a man that made everything and didn't go into debt, and then later he went into debt. Like, okay. But I did like kind of that part of it. I thought Cosette in the beginning, when she was a young girl, was very, very interesting. And then as the story went on, I felt like her character didn't develop as well as some of the others. I wanted a little bit more maturity from her, I guess, maybe. But Jean Valjean and his story, and I have to say, the scene, if you've read, hopefully you've read this book, the scene where the Thénardiers have Jean Valjean tied to the chair and Marius is in the other room watching and witnessing all of this, and then Javert showing up. It was this thrill ride. It was probably one of the best sections of this book in total. I was on the edge of my seat, rooting for Jean Valjean, hoping that Marius did something in there, but then to have Javert show up, I was like, no, I don't want Jean Valjean to be arrested again. I wanted him to be able to get out. I wanted him and Cosette to have peace. I wanted them to live a very long and happy life without being hunted. And I'm glad that they got that for a period of time. The ending, of course, the ending, you have to, I don't know if there would have been a different ending for Jean Valjean. I wish he would have had more time with Cosette. I wish he would have gotten to see grandkids. I wish he got to live with them. But then the Thénardier coming back again and trying to blackmail Marius and say, oh, I know where he's at and this is the bad guy. And then that was what made him go, oh, he's not the bad guy. I wanted, again, Thénardier to get a little bit more. That line at the end of Thénardier's kind of part where he became a slave trader with one of his daughters. Like, that's not the ending. He should have, why did him get breaking out of prison? Why didn't he get rearrested ever? He didn't get captured, but Jean Valjean was just tortured. I wanted Javert to be, I'm glad he saw kind of all of the things that he was kind of finally seeing and recognizing that were not great. All of the things like the prisoners were barefoot and listing that out. Could he have done more, though, if he had stayed and really helped redeem the system, revise the system, rather than committing suicide? Again, it's like, you just got to the place that I want you to be, and now you're gone. Oh, horrible. Gavroche was one of my favorite characters. The characters I didn't understand, kind of the ones that I said in the beginning of this. I didn't understand the two other boys that the Thénardiers had that were introduced so late in the book. I understand kind of how they were used a little bit to show some of Gavroche's goodness, to show, how horrible, again, the Thénardiers were. I didn't need more evidence of that after the first part of the book. And then they also had that piece at the end of the wealthy feeding the swans or the geese instead of feeding the two boys that were standing there hungry. So I get that part of it, but I didn't understand why. You could have shown that same thing with pretty much any kind of young child. And I didn't get enough, again, of what happened to them. I wanted to know more. I wanted to know, okay, what actually happened to them. I wanted them to have a happy ending, and I definitely didn't feel like I got that. And the other one was the wife, Mrs. Thénardier. I know she went to jail along with the second daughter and Eponine, but she died, I think. I'm pretty sure she died, but she was so pivotal to Cosette in the beginning, and then just to have her kind of, have no real end other than she died. I was like, okay, I wanted, again, something more. But those are all minor complaints in there. Overall, wonderful book. Definitely worth the time. Definitely worth the effort of reading this monster of a book. find a buddy, find someone to read it with, and just dig in. Take your time. I read it about 50 pages a day, and that was a decent pace for me, but I don't know if it would work for everyone until I got to about the last 150 pages, and then it's like, okay, all bets are off. I just have to finish reading this book. So, but it was an absolutely wonderful, wonderful read. After this, I actually went and watched the musical, and so much of the musical glosses over the main kind of story. So if you've seen the musical and you go, wow, that's a really great musical, I love the songs, I love some of the characters, you probably will love the book, because the book just gives you a deeper dive into everyone that you see in the musical, and it is just wonderful. The book, yeah. If it was to have an adaptation, I almost want a 20-part series, 2 seasons worth on Netflix of this to give me the deep dive that I want to see of the characters, where the musical was a very light and high level overview of the main characters, and pretty much only the main characters. But there were scenes in that definitely made me cry. But with this book, this monster, this is the second longest book that I will read this year for the 1001 book countdown, and it is done in March. Yay, I'm so thrilled. Thank you again to everyone who read this with me. I couldn't have done it without you. Thank you, Kelly. Thank you, Kelly. Thank you, Kelly. Thank you, Sandra. Thank you, Stephanie. Thank you, everyone who commented and was reading along with me. I really appreciate it. But with this, we do get to go from 887 to 886, and it was on my 2023 list. So we get to go from, I have to look, 46 to 45. What else am I reading on the 1001 book? Absolutely nothing. I haven't started another 1001 book. I am behind. I know I'm behind, because I should be what? 3 books, 12 down, and I'm not 12 down. I'm only 7 down on my list. But you know what? I'm just having so much fun reading for the Women's Prize, reading for the BookTube prize, that I'm not going to worry about it, and I will get back to it hopefully in a couple of weeks. But that's what I have for you for today. Have you read Les Mis? Did you like it? Did you not like it? Why didn't you like it? Really curious. I hope you enjoyed this countdown video, and hopefully I'll be back in a couple of weeks with another one. But as always, like, comment, and subscribe, and until next time. All right, bye.